Hello, welcome back to the YouTube channel of Bethel Evangelical Free Church Hanley. I'm Pastor Gervais Chalmley. This is another historic Cumbrian church. This is the Church of St John the Evangelist, Woodland. And it's effectively a bigger version of Holy Innocents' Broughton Mills. It's the same building effectively, which has been grown a bit, and differences in fenestration. It's Paleonostan, Lancaster. They did an awful lot of work up here because, of course, the Victorian era, there's a bit more money up here. There's people who are interested in the picturesque, the landscape, and part of that is that there's a desire for better churches, bigger churches, more churches, because there are places where it used to be expected people would walk miles and miles and miles to get to church, and then people say, actually, we'd like to have a church nearer to where we live. And so this is built again in the late 19th century, and you can probably hear the acoustic is pretty good. It's one of these peaceful little churches. So I was going to do this after Broughton Mills, but actually it's best to have a couple of others that don't look just exactly the same together. So let's have a look around. As usual, then we start at the west end, and we start here with the font, which of course is Victorian. This is after all a Victorian church. Looking east, we've got these little lancet windows, relatively small windows, but of course we are in the Lake District. It does get cold in the winter. It got colder in the winter back in Victorian days because of, climate. Anyone who's saying, oh, club doesn't change, go and fight with somebody else. You know nothing. Climate does change. That's why the Romans used to have vineyards in the Pennines, but enough of that. So here we have a memorial to Caroline M. Park. It's interesting, she was the wife of the rector. He was rector 1894 to 1950, and she was voluntary organist of the church. For 13 years, died at Gosforth Rectory, March the 4th, 1915, so he would have moved then from here to Gosforth and died. Their son was killed in 1917 in Mesopotamia. Caroline Park's one of a huge history of clergy wives who have been voluntary organists and the like. So there we are looking at the back, and yes, the bell rope is swaying. There's a little bit of a breeze, and I may or may not have backed up against it by mistake. Pulpit is one of these that are make sure you're wearing clean shoes, or everyone will see that you're not. And of course, your full-length cassock and such like are quite useful there. The place does seem to have been fitted with electricity fairly early. We've still got these converted oil lamps, because that's what you would have had originally. No gas out here, of course, so you're either candles or oil lamps, and oil lamps are more convenient and easier to maintain. So here we have the windows. There's 3 stained glass windows in the apse. We have the Nativity here. We have the Crucifixion here, and we have the Ascension here. So it's the sort of thing that you'll find quite commonly in these places. There's the back end of the pulpit, and we just look west, and very simple, just a double lancet at the west end here. We'll see outside a little bit more. So let's do that then. Let's go outside and have a look around. And so here we are outside, and you can see what a simple building it is. This early English style that we saw inside. There's an apse, which is not quite historically accurate. By the early English period, they're moving away from apses, but it looks nice, and this is a picturesque building in the Lake District, and who cares about being strictly conforming to historical precedents. So we'll have a look around the outside and admire this splendid building in its setting. So like Holy Innocents' Broughton Mills, this is in the parish of Broughton in Furness, and maybe that's one of the reasons why they're both very similar, that it's effectively saying, well, I'd like another one of those. I liked the original. But this is a little bit fancier because it's a bit bigger, and because it is functioning as a parish church, it's not just a chapel of ease within the larger parish. And so we have here the heads of, well, here of course is Queen Victoria of famous memory, and that is the head of the bishop, I suspect a bishop of Carlisle at the time, with wonderful mutton chop whiskers. You can see here's the setting, there's a cottage over the road, and the hills and the graveyard down there. So, beautiful setting here, very rustic and rural. You see you've got a central buttress here. If it's slightly bigger, it needs something like that. I suspect that's the composting toilet, because our Victorian ancestors were much more willing to go to the loo in, shall we say, more primitive circumstances. Now these days we need a loo. So there we go. Wonderful views. It's called Woodlands, and there are plenty of woodlands around here. It's not in the middle of a thick wood. The walls are very similar to those at Broughton Mills, with that, again, that imitation dry stone walling effect. I'll just look at that. This is why the Lake District is one of the most visited parts of England. Very obviously, very much upland area here. There is the apse. Again, quite simple. You can see the stone on this side is less of the artificial dry stone wall effect. I suspect it's been patched up and repointed because there's been problems, and someone's gone, well, rather than have this problematic Victorian effect, you can see here, this is your imitation dry stone wall effect. They've said, no, actually we'd rather have greater stability and cheaper repointing than retain this picturesque effect, which is fair enough. So here we are, back round to the south side. Oh, and there's the bell up there, just the one bell here. So there we have it, St John the Evangelist, Woodland. The road signs say Woodlands, which is plural, but the sign in the church says Woodland, singular, so I assume that the village is called Woodlands, and the district is called Woodlands, the parish called Woodlands, and the church is Woodland. So thank you for watching, and may God bless you and keep you until next time.